Wow. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to have the author of A Second in Eternity, the true story about a near-death out-of-body experience and a voyage beyond space and time into the end. Gary L. Wimmer, the author, is my guest. I'm delighted. I'm delighted. Thanks for coming on with me.
I'm honored, Louis. I'm honored to
Oh,
be with you, man.
all honors is mine. I have to say, I want listeners to know that it was Sterling Meyer that connected us. And
Correct.
I love Sterling. She is wonderful. She is amazing. And I appreciated her connecting us. She's just praised. I've got the emails. She praised you. And if Sterling Meyer's praising you, I am too.
I'm honored.
So tell us about, you are so multi-talented. I mean, tell us about you.
Well, I was the third of seven brothers. I was born in 45. I'm 74, November. I had two older brothers born on 45 and 46 on December 8th, the day after Pearl Harbor. I remember that. My mom always said that. And the day of the Immaculate Conception, I don't think their conception was immaculate, but So anyway, there was three of us in 3 years, and then I had four other brothers. My two brothers are very competitive. I didn't play sports. I didn't want to get into competing with them. I always had puppet shows and chemistry sets and was always sort of an entertainer rather than play baseball or football. I went to college in electrical engineering. Well, actually, I started playing guitar way back in the 60s, before the Beatles came out. And when the Beatles came out and the Stones and all the music, I learned every song I could. Started playing in bands in high school and in college. And in college, I got real interested in psychic ability. I started reading a lot about Edgar Cayce, and that changed my life. As a kid, I was always curious about, okay, who is God? What is God? And if we're going to be judged by God, we should be entitled to know the damn rules. I want to know what the criteria is. And I assumed, maybe foolishly, maybe correctly, because it came about, that we should be able to know. I wanted to know the truth. And I, in my own way, kept asking. I played music all the way through high school and college, graduated electrical engineer, 1970. It was all defense work. I did not want to go in the defense industry. I was a conscientious objector. I worked with the American Friends Service Committee, a Quaker organization at the time that was helping people get conscientious objector status, and they helped me. So 2 years of working a conscientious objector in Austin here, where I live now, 70 to 72, there were still no jobs in good stuff. It was all defense work, and I thought, well, hell, I'll play music. So I started traveling and playing music and studying psychic ability. And in 1970, I had the most profound experience any human being could ever have. I'm so grateful for for having that experience. And it was basically a near-death experience. And I could summarize a little of that if you'd like to hear a little bit about it.
I would. Again, a musician, writer, psychic, and actor, and more. So, yeah.
Musician first. And then I started learning to give readings. Psychic ability started in about late 60s, reading a lot of Edgar Cayce. I moved to Austin. I saw a couple psychics here. They said, wow, you got a lot of psychic ability. You ought to do readings. So I started doing readings in the early 70s with basically a regular deck of playing cards. That seemed to be my specialty, because I didn't have to remember anything. I could just remember the symbolism of the numbers of the suits. And so I started doing that in 1977 out of the clear blue. This experience I'm about to describe started happening. Within 24 hours after quitting a band, I was tired of traveling for a while. I had to sort some stuff out, life, girlfriend, finances. Within 24 hours, my psychic ability started taking off for no apparent reason. I remember the first time I felt it was with my roommates and some neighbors down the street. The night I quit the band, I moved my gear in and I started hearing what they were about to ask, before they would say it. The next day, I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I started feeling things before they would happen. My roommate came walking in with the morning newspaper, reading it, and I saw the headlines through his eyes. It almost floored me.
I'll
He
bet.
threw the
It's
paper
scary.
down the table.
Gary, excuse me, did it I would think that might frighten me a little bit as what's going on.
Oh, it did. It startled me. It
Yeah.
frightened me, but at the same time, it kind of felt like, well, that was unique. What was that weird psychic experience? Because I knew about psychic experiences. I've read a lot of Edgar Casey. I was used to thinking in terms of that being a, very something that happened, our psychic ability. So yeah, I was kind of scared about this, but it kept building up over the next couple days to the point where I could. I'll give you a couple examples. We went out to a bar that night, and as we walked in at a particular spot outside the bar, I felt this eerie feeling. And then about an hour later in the bar, the band was loud. I went into the quiet part of the front room, felt like taking a break. I could people walking by, I was picking up all sorts of stuff about them. It was fascinating, but kind of haunting. And all of a sudden, I thought, I need to take a break. And all of a sudden, I'm outside. And these people are walking through me. And I opened my eyes. Nope, I'm still sitting in this chair. I just imagined being transported outside. And when I saw the people walking in real life, they were dressed exactly as I'd seen them a moment ago. And I started transporting myself outside the bar to see people before they'd come in. Blew my mind. I'd never thought of that before. This built up over the next couple of days to the point of I was never so scared and so enlightened at the same time. The book is filled with a lot of examples. This went on for a week. For example, my friend and I went to Gordo's pool hall one time here. It was in Austin. And he asked me, he was very concerned. He saw me going through all these changes unexplicably, things all of a sudden having a whole new sense of priority, me trying to figure out the millisecond of the universe. He was aware that I was in a whole different plane. So he was kind of hanging out with me, making sure I didn't flip out because I was acting rather strange. And at a restaurant or at a pool hall, Gordo's pool hall, we were facing each other and he asked me, what's it like now? I know you're going through this. And I said, well, let me explain. It's easier. And I turned around and looked at two guys playing pool and I saw the next 10 shots roll off in my head like a movie. Turned back to my friend. I said, you're going to shoot the 5, you're going to shoot the 6, the waitress is going to come up. It unfolded exactly as I'd seen. He was startled. I wasn't, because I just saw it like a preview. I was startled not at what I was able to perceive and pick up before the fact, but I was startled it was happening. I didn't know what was happening or why. I could look at a random stranger 3 blocks away because there's no neutral. I had to either think of something or I was absorbing something. I wasn't sleeping. There was no neutral. I could look at a random stranger 3 blocks away and think, scratch your head and point up to that building, and they would do it. And I would think, okay, if that was intuitive, if I knew that was about to happen, that's one thing. But what if I made that guy do that? What if I was making things happening with my thoughts? What if I thought car wreck? The intensity of watching every thought go through my head got profoundly haunting and exhilarating and enlightening at the same time. I've never gone through so many conflicting emotions. Anyway, after a week of this, now I started feeling my guardian angels protecting me. I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew that I felt these guardian angels, and they seemed to call themselves monitors. They seemed to almost name themselves because I could feel them from time to time. Never saw them, but I could feel them. At the end of a week, This is February 7th, 1977. It started at the end of January. At the end of a week of this, incredible vision, psychic ability. I'd never been so scared in my life and so enlightened at the same time, but I couldn't handle it anymore. And I was pacing down Guadalupe Street here in Austin, and I was scared, and I was crying, and I was praying. And a huge group of people were just looking at me like, wow, what's with this weird guy? And I didn't care. You know, they were concerned about me, but I didn't care. All I wanted to do was, God, this is too much. And all of a sudden, I felt this warm light right above my head. I opened my eyes. I'd been crying, and people were watching me. I opened my eyes and looked up, and there's this huge light right above my head. And I went, wow. I looked around, and nobody could see this, obviously, because they're looking at me. They're not looking up at this light.
Looking at you, seeing you.
So I looked up at this light, and I realized it was the monitors, the guardian angels. They had their hands on like a glass table, crystal table, and the light was coming through their hands down to me. It looked like a beam of light. But they said, "Do you trust us?" And I went, "Wow, you're the monitors. You're the guys who've been monitoring." Yeah. Well, I don't understand. Do you trust us? And I started rattling off some more stuff, and they said, "Do you trust us?" Real simple. I said, "Yes." And within a split second, I was hit by a speeding car. Bam, head on collision. I'm right outside my body, looking at my body getting tumbled by the car. I felt this sort of strange sense of detachment, like I think that's me, but it's happening on Earth and I'm outside my body. So it's like a certain degree of separation. Then all of a sudden, I'm expanding outwards like a balloon, not like an arrow, not like something going one direction, but expanding all directions at once. I saw the whole Earth from 360 degrees because it was within me. North Pole, South Pole, all around. I kept expanding beyond the planets. By this time, I had no awareness of me anymore. It was just pure sensation, and it was beautiful. And it was the most mind-boggling, beautiful. The fear that I'd had, the incredible, intense fear, dissipated the second that the monitors appeared overhead. I went from the most incredible fear to the most protected feeling I've ever had in my life in a millisecond. And I was still there. I felt great. All the fear disappeared, but I'm expanding outward. I have no idea who I am anymore. I went to the edge of the universe and I went through this level of consciousness called the colors that I describe as a level of consciousness that we go through coming into the planet that allows us to use our senses, our five senses and our intuition to actually interpret the universe that we just came from, the infinite mind. Now we're coming into time and space. So I saw all this in the most eloquent, beautiful sense of amazement. And I kept expanding, and I went through the edge of the universe, and then saw this whole infinite wall of universes, infinite sky. And I was just come out of one universe, but there was infinite universes, and that kind of blew my mind. But then all these infinite universes wound up in like a big circle and turned into this tunnel of light. And I was projected through that. The people have used that description, tunnel of light, quite a lot because it really does look like that. It really does feel like that. It's the actual. I felt like I was going through a tunnel and it was speeding silver and white clouds around me, and I was zooming through it, kind of like the clown being shot out of the circus cannon, but a very positive way. And wow, it felt incredible. All of a sudden, I come to this infinite blue mind. It's infinite sky blue, all directions, and it's infinite mind. And I don't feel like I'm observing it. I am it. And I'm a part of it. And it's infinite creativity, infinite time, infinite love. And that's the most mind-boggling thing. Most people who've had a near-death experience talk about the feeling of infinite love, and it really is. It's infinite love that you can't even describe in human terms.
Gary, let me ask you, forgive me for interrupting you. Again,
sure, go ahead.
GaryWimmer.com, GaryWimmer.com. The book, A Second in Eternity, the true story about a near-death out-of-body experience and a voyage beyond space and time into the infinite. I've got to tell you, when I first, again, when Sterling was telling me a little bit about you and the book, and then I started reading the book, it reminded me there's a Cleveland attorney Ian Friedman. And I don't want to go into too much length, but I had invited him in studio a number of years ago, because he had become later on the president of the Cleveland Bar Association, very well accomplished attorney. He took a pro bono case for a young lady who shot her abusive father. And he took it pro bono, and I was interested, so I invited him on. He had came in, and he had his one arm doesn't work because of an accident that he had. He told me about it and was interested. I'm not going to go into length because he had a near-death experience, an out-of-body experience. And he described it very similar to what you're saying, what he was seeing. And I remember, and it stayed with me. Louis, I no longer fear death.
Absolutely.
And I thought about that when that's the first thing that came to mind when I started reading A Second Eternity.
Absolutely. One of the main things I realized, and I encourage people, is never fear death. The only thing you can do about it is live a good life now, period. That's all you can do anyway, so why worry about it? Number two, it's beautiful. Our challenge is here in physicality, in time and space, with separation or seeming the illusion of separation. But our challenge is here now in this life, not death. So never fear of death. But yeah, after this incredible blue, infinite mind, infinite creativity, and I had no awareness of myself. I had no awareness of Earth. I had no awareness of creation. All there was is infinite creation. And it was over infinite time, infinite space, infinite possibilities, nothing to limit it. And here I am in it. And suddenly I felt like I was observing it rather than being part of it. And I was pulled back. I was pulled away from this. I use the term spiritual gravity because it felt like something was pulling me somewhere. I had no idea where I was going, but I liked where I was, but I was pulled away from it. I started collapsing into time and space, came back to this universe, still had no idea who I was or where I was going, got closer and closer to Earth, saw all these pictures of what we're going through now, all this incredible change in the world. You know, wars, tribulation, disharmony, saw all that stuff, saw 9/11, saw COVID-19, saw all this stuff way before. In 1977, I saw this. Wasn't sure. It wasn't like guaranteed, but I saw all these signs, and over the next couple years, they all came true. So anyway, as I'm coming back into my body, I saw these pictures of the future. I saw pictures of the future when we get on the other side, when we really do have a peaceful, enlightened world. And then I saw pictures of myself playing guitar, and then I saw my body, and I jumped back into my body. I wasn't even hurt. I'd just been in a head-on collision with a car. I jumped to my feet. I felt so eerie, but enlightened, empowered. Well, people on the street and the driver, everybody's freaking out and screaming, and I wasn't even hurt. I wanted to walk home. They said, no, wait for the hospital, the ambulance, they're coming. And of course, in a couple seconds, the ambulance and cops and everything, and they're all looking around for a body in the street, but I'm standing up talking to people.
And you've got the police reports. You've got the police reports in your book.
Absolutely, yeah.
A Second in Eternity, true story about a near-death out-of-body experience and a voyage beyond space and time and into the infinite. Gary L. Wimmer, the author, is my guest. GaryWimmer.com. We've got those links up. Just go directly to Gary Wimmer. A couple of quick comments that we've got for you. Cheryl says, I have had some profound experiences in my life about others. I myself have had. Say hi to Jack at the shop around the corner. Shirley says, I'm so happy to be listening to this. Lost my husband almost 17 months ago. And I know beyond a doubt where he is. Thank you, she said.
Absolutely.
You hear that a lot. You've got to, I believe you've got to be hearing that a lot. People
Oh, absolutely. And I
relating.
feel good because, I was raised Catholic. I didn't want to go to hell, you know. And once I realized the only hell there is not seeing God, infinite mind, beauty, love, that sort of thing. That's hell. It's blindness. It's not a place. And nobody's destined to go there. We do a lot by choice. Choice is the most powerful thing. No matter what you're going through in life, it's how you look at it. It's your choice of perception. It's your choice of attitude. That affects everything. So I'm a firm believer in choice and that we chose to be here. There ain't no accidents, but we chose to come here, and then we go through a lot of things in life, whether it's, career, love, whatever challenges, because we have to learn. And if you didn't go through something that forced you to grow or evolve or think of something differently, we'd be dumber than a rock. We need curveballs, changes, surprises.
What is it like, Gary, having those psychic abilities, being able to help people? And is it troublesome at all at this point for you?
Not really. I never feel troubled by it. I do recognize the limitations of it because no matter what I say and what I do and what I suggest, people have free will. And I don't try to tell people what to do. I try to suggest, hey, life's trying to tell you this.
I
I
see.
tend to focus in readings on what life is telling people and why, not all the exact dates and names, and you'll meet Joe on Tuesday. I mean, I don't try to, because that's kind of sideline peripheral stuff. What's really important is why you're going through what you're doing and what's happening. And if you ask questions, if you want to learn, if you want to grow, and especially if you meditate and connect with your higher mind, you'll get answers. I sure did. Everybody can, but you have to ask. And you don't get everything you ask for immediately. But excuse me, I realized how real higher mind and infinite mind and guides really are. They really exist. This is the cloudy world here. This is the confusing one. Out there, it's crystal clear. Never fear death, people. Are those who have departed before are in such a more beautiful spot than we are. Yeah, they still have issues. They may be coming back. They still feel things, but they know not to interfere with free will unless we ask. That's the number one rule in life is ask and you shall receive. It's your guides know the rule. They don't have the right to interfere with your free will. If you want to believe the earth is flat and Hitler was a good guy, go to town. You're wrong.
That's right. Certainly,
But you have
certainly.
free will. So I always suggest people use their free will to grow, to evolve, to ask questions. So yeah, I feel extremely grateful that I'm able to help people through some challenging things because, boy, I've been through some challenges and I've asked the universe to help me so many times. And guess what? It does. If you ask and if you listen,
And you got, like you say, you got to listen
gotta listen. Gotta
and
listen. I
ask.
mean,
Go ahead, Gary.
yeah, you and I can talk on the phone and text and email, but our higher mind doesn't answer us that way. It's through feelings, through thoughts, through things that look like coincidences, through things we experience. Most of the psychic experiences I've had in life, because every time I do a reading, I have one. I don't know the person. I'm looking at a bunch of stones. This is lithomancy is a method I use to do readings. Uh, so I feel very helpful. I feel very grateful for being able to help people because I've sure asked the universe to help me. So it's a fair trade.
Lithomancy, when you were talking about that, and again, you've got, for listeners, you've got the book up. I can see it behind you. Tell us a little bit about that psychic art of reading stones.
Right. I started giving readings in the early 70s with regular playing cards more than anything. In 1980, I met a lady named Alice Worrell who did a reading with this method. I had never seen it. I was fascinated. She held a class about a couple weeks later. It was pouring rain. I was the only person that showed up. She barely showed up because it was raining so bad. She gave me a instead of a long lesson with a bunch of people, she gave me about a 5 or 10 minute short lesson. We decided to head home because it was raining too much. And the next day I started practicing. And here's what the system boils down to. It involves 16 stones. 10 of them represent astrology, sun, moon, Mars, Venus, Mercury, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Saturn, and 6 aspects of life: life, love, luck, commitment, timing, and place. There's 16 stones. When I do it in person, I have the person drop the stones. When I do it over the phone, which is most of them is nowadays over the phone, I hold the stones in my hand. I have the person say drop. I drop them into a circle of leather that represents a clock. I start reading in the center, reading up to 12 o'clock, and then I read around like a clock for 12 weeks, noticing where the stones are, what they mean, what they represent, if they form patterns a lot, circles, triangles, arrows. And I look at that pattern and allow it to tell me what I need to tell the person. And always before I do a reading, I always ask my guides to help me, because I don't want to screw up somebody's life. Help me be effective and helpful. And because, like I said, I don't want to give out bad or false information, and I don't.
Of course. Yeah, you don't want to give out bad information. And certainly, as you said, not false information. So it's the pattern that they drop in. Forgive my ignorance, but
correct. Basically, I for example, you can probably see this.
Listeners, yeah, you're showing.
I start here. I read toward 3 o'clock. I guess that's 3 o'clock from your point of view. I notice the stones. I notice the way they touch. I notice the way they point. And what I do is allow my intuition to make sense of the geometry, because all I'm looking at is a bunch of 16 stones. Interesting enough, I lived in Europe in the 90s. From 93 to 2000, I was a musician over there. I also gave readings, of course, and sometimes I wouldn't have my stones with me, and people asked for readings a lot of times. And one time I thought, well, okay, I don't have my stones, but I'll give you a reading. Come on. And brought them up to my apartment and had them just lay stuff out on a table: an earring, a trinket, a coin, a guitar string, an ashtray, a glass of water. I said, just lay this stuff out on a table in some sort of pattern, circle, whatever. I'm going to go make some tea. I'll come back in 2 minutes and I'll just read the table. And I would. I'd look at an ashtray, a card, or lipstick, whatever. And the reason is this: I know for a fact that in 1 millisecond of Earth time, humans, maybe not in the body, but there's a possibility of experiencing infiniteness, let alone a little bit of knowledge about someone sitting in front of you. So I know that the human mind can tap into that, and I just tell myself I'm going to do it and just look at whatever I'm happen to look at and read patterns and give that information. So I encourage everybody to look at life that way. You can learn that too. You can learn to read symbolism in everything, anything.
That's encouraging and positive, and I love that about what you say. Again, that giving comfort to people because of the near-death experience.
Oh, amen. People, never fear death. Never fear death. No. Do you think God's going to take your most vulnerable spot and go, ha, heaven or hell? We'll flip a coin. Oh, yeah, sorry,
I never.
Sorry, dude.
I agree with you 100% about that with hell. It's a punitive God just seems oxymoronic to me. I just,
not
right. It's
not punitive at all. Humans are punitive. Humans use free will to choose bad stuff or good stuff. Infinite mind is completely, and this fascinated me, it's not limited by anything. It's infinite time, infinite space, infinite creativity, but no bias. No bias. It's, God isn't pro-God or anti-God. God's God, and it doesn't even think about being God because it's everything. There's no limit. Humans are limited,
Yeah.
but we can tap into that unlimitedness. That's the key. We can tap into it. We can learn to read signs. We can connect with the higher mind, but we don't come with the manual. We come with free will instead, and we get to choose whether to ask questions because everybody in life feels situations where their guides, higher mind, is tapping them on the shoulder saying, hey, you want to learn something to make life easier, or do you want to remain stupid? And we get to choose. We get to choose.
I
You
like
want to learn, you want to stay stupid.
you
It's a
want to say
choice.
stupid. Gary,
Never be afraid of learning and knowing more. Never. But the knowledge is power, period. Fact. It is.
we should never stop.
Never
We should
stop. And it
always,
makes life more meaningful, more grateful. I've got back problems from my neck to my feet. I can barely walk. I used to play guitar a lot. My hands, I can barely move them. I'm the happiest person on the planet because I don't live in Ukraine and nobody's bombing me. And count your blessings, folks.
yeah, count your blessings.
Count your blessings, Jesus. And
Beautiful, beautiful message.
if we look at what we can do and what we can learn and what we can grow, it doesn't mean you won't have curveballs or challenges.
Sure.
And some of them are pretty tough. Some life challenges are very tough. I thank God mine are so simple compared to other people's. But never fear death. Always believe and know that you can learn anything. You can learn through curveballs. You can learn through tragedies. You can learn through the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if you choose to learn through everything, you're way better off than if you choose to be pissed off about everything.
Yeah, yeah, because and it doesn't that attract more negativity?
Absolutely.
If you're angry all the time, then you see things that make you angry. Go ahead, Gary.
You said see right then. I was pointing my glasses because it's really the way we see life is the glasses we look through. If we look through blue glasses, everything's going to be blue. Green glasses, everything is green. If you look through the glasses of, and I learned this for sanity, and I encourage other people, I learned to look through the glasses of no matter what I've been through, no matter what I go through, no matter what I will go through, I'm going to learn. I'm going to benefit. It's already obvious life can hit me in the face, throw me curveballs. Why stay on ground level? Raise your consciousness and learn from everything. Really, it makes life really a constant adventure and growth rather than piling on levels of frustration and anger and disappointment. It's a choice.
Look for those positives as opposed to focusing on the negatives, right?
All in the perception, on the glasses, like your glasses, Louis.
Yeah, thanks. Gary, also with the second in eternity, it made me think of another friend, and this was a number of years ago. He was in emergency, and when he was on the operating table, he recalled how he saw himself looking down. Mm-hmm. He was on the operating table. Now it didn't get to where yours got. It wasn't rise up and get it, all, but he remembered that. And he said it was such a profound experience to be able to do that. And you hear from a lot of people, correct, who have had the near-death experience.
More and more people are having them. More and more people are admitting to them. And it's not an accident. It's not a coincidence. There are no accidents. There are no coincidences. There's cause and effect, period. We came here with cause and effect. And because of some choice that we made, cause and effect, we get to experience other levels of consciousness. One of the main questions I had, because I was eventually taken to jail. I was, I went through all sorts of stuff because nobody at the scene, when I wasn't hurt in an accident, a head-on collision with a car, and I tried to tell people what went on, that didn't work. They didn't, but I didn't care. And bottom line, I know infinite mind exists, that we can tap into it, that we can learn from everything. And I went through a lot of depression in my 20s, very serious depression. A lot of it because as a musician, I never had a good voice and I could never get into good bands. It drove me nuts. I felt like, God, I'm a good guy. I grew up with 6 brothers. I know how to work with people. I'm friendly. I'm nice, but I can't sing well enough to get in a good band. And so what did I do, Louis? At 80, in 1980, at 33, I started teaching myself piano. I got a gig with a couple country bands,
Yeah.
local around Austin. Great money in the 80s, big dance halls. I didn't have to travel. I had more money than I was ever making in 1980 to 84 playing these country gigs. And I learned to play the piano and I learned to be a soloist with a crappy voice and a good attitude. I never
I
sang
like
well.
that.
Oh, that's
Crappy
it.
voice and a good attitude.
Good attitude, crappy voice, good attitude. Not a great piano player, not a great soloist, but by God, I can make people laugh. I can talk.
Well, Gary, I've got to tell you, I get people. I'm a Tom Waits fan, and
Oh,
when they hear right when he hears at his song, some of the songs are so deep and touch me deeply, but they say his voice. How can you listen to that? I I love listening to that. You know,
wasted and wounded,
yeah.
right what the moon did. Great.
You had. I want to touch on this when you were saying that order of protective custody, and you've got that in the book. Do you
Yeah,
mind?
what happened is at the scene of the accident where I was involved with a head-on collision, I wasn't hurt at all. I jumped to my feet, started talking to people. Everybody's freaked out. How the hell this guy just hit by a car and he's jumping up like nothing happened. But I didn't feel any pain. I wasn't hurt. Cops, ambulance came. Everybody admitted I wasn't hurt. I wanted to go home. They just wouldn't let me go home. They're not going to let you just go home, Gary. So they took me to the hospital to examine me, and I wasn't hurt. And then they had a psychiatrist come in. And when the psychiatrist came in to talk to me, I knew his name. I'd seen pictures of him. I knew all about him. That blew his mind. And he said, "How'd you know about me? You've been a patient before?" And I said, "No, doc, I can pick up everything right now," because I could.
Yeah.
And I explained to him about his wife and his kids moving their furniture. He was mind blown that I knew all this about him, never met him before. And I finally said, he said, "I've heard about this. I've never seen anybody that went through this experience." I said, "You do now." I said, "Can I just go home?" And the fact is, they couldn't just let me go home. So I went to a psychiatric hospital. And before they could do that, they put me in jail overnight so they could get an order of protective custody. And you know what, Louis? I didn't give a damn. They can take me anywhere. They can put me in any situation. I just been to heaven and back, and I do not care. I couldn't fight it anyway. I mean, there's cops, police, ambulance, judges, you know. So yeah, I spent a tour in a psychiatric hospital, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't have believed me either. I mean, how do you believe someone who gets hit by a car and says, "Wow, I
Yeah.
just went to infinite
Yeah.
mind," and you know, I wouldn't have believed me. So I have no problem with them putting me in a psychiatric hospital. It was from the time I saw the light and infinite mind, life from there on has been a downhill roller coaster. It's been easier and easier. Not that I don't have problems, but I just don't let them screw with me.
Yeah.
Period. If I can change, and this is what I suggest to people, if you can change things and make them better, work on them, do it. There's a lot of stuff you can't change. You can't change the past. You can't change other people. You can't change your genes, your history. But what matters is what you can change, period. Not what you can't change. What matters is what you can learn and do, not what you don't learn and do. What matters is not what you've been through, but how much you learn from it to prepare yourself forward. I'm a complete optimist because life can show us
It's wonderful.
great things.
That's beautiful. That's and beautiful, beautiful advice, beautiful lessons. Talking with Gary L. Wimmer, his book is incredible. A Second in Eternity. I've got to say that Richard Kids who's listening also is a Tom Waits fan. I think Tom Waits is one of those you love him
Oh yeah,
or I don't want to say hate him, but you're not interested. You either are in or you're out. There's no in between. Oh, I can listen to a little Tom Waits once in a while. I don't hear from people like that. Your website, GaryWimmer.com. Tell us a little bit about it if you would.
Well, that's my main website, GARYWIMMER.com. I'm also a writer and an actor and a musician and a psychic. So you can click on my psychic link and you'll go to how I give readings, or you can go directly to lithomancy.com, LITHOMANCY. Litho means stone, like lithograph. Uh, Mancy means the divination by. So lithomancy means divination by stone. If you go to lithomancy.com, you'll find all about how I give readings. You can Google lithomancy, you'll find me, LITHOMANCY. You can Google A Second Eternity and find the book and find me. You can Google Gary Wimmer, or you can email me, GW@GARYWIMMER.com. I get a lot of telemarketing calls, so you can call
Oh,
me, leave a message, but I have to leave a message.
Gary,
Email me is the best way.
I get it. You know, those telemarketing calls. And I alert people as they are approaching 65. When you get close, when you're 64, you get just, they're relentless over and over with the Medicare supplements. You know, I'm in my 70th year. I still get them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you're right. I agree with you about the robocalls. I so enjoyed talking with you, and your message is so positive, Gary. And I'm grateful to Sterling Meyer that connected
Me
us.
too.
And I hope we can do this again, because again, it's such a positive message. It's such a beautiful message of enlightenment and hope, and again, not fearing death, which
Never. But we can live positive, enlightening, spiritual lives with a lot of great results. Folks, think outside the box.
yeah.
Big. Don't limit yourself. We got enough limitations anyway, genes, history, karma, you name it. But the more you think in your mind about expansion and creativity and health and happiness and doing the right thing, that becomes a real big, nice, beautiful snowball that'll take you anywhere.
Such a
Instead of,
beautiful message.
I mean, maybe snowball's not the best analogy, but that's the point. It's the point. Never, never shortchange yourself on how happy you can be, how creative, how inspired, how much you can grow, how much you can learn. Never. Don't shortchange yourself.
GaryWimmer.com, Gary Wimmer, and the book, wonderful book, A Second in Eternity. Gary, thanks so much for doing the gig with me this morning. Hopefully,
Love to talk to you again, Louis.
I would love that, Gary. I would love that. I would love that. Thank you so much.
Stay inspired, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The book is just, it's fascinating when you understand